The moment I stepped out of the limousine, I knew I wasn't at a funeral. I was walking into an ambush dressed in black. The Harper mansion had always smelled of polished oak and money. Today it reeked of perfume and judgment. Everywhere I looked, whispers, tilted heads, pity dressed up as politeness. They called me the widow, but the way they stared made it sound like the suspect. Richard's children were lined up in the front pew like prosecutors. Charlotte, the eldest, her jaw locked tight. Henry, pretending to pray but watching me through half-closed eyes. They hadn't even spoken to me since the hospital. When the priest said Richard's name, they all bowed their heads. Not one of them looked at me. I sat there alone, hands trembling around the same wedding band they'd told me I didn't deserve to wear. After the burial, the whispers followed me into the house. Champagne glasses instead of condolences, laughter in corners. I'd been warned they were planning something, but I hadn't expected this, to be tried for loving a man they thought belonged only to them. Then the lawyer cleared his throat. He read the will in a voice too calm, too practiced. All assets, properties, and trusts shall be divided equally among the 4 Harper children. The surviving spouse, Camille Harper, receives no inheritance. The room went still, and then quiet chuckles. Charlotte leaned in, her whisper slicing like glass. "Guess you married for nothing after all." I felt every heartbeat like it was trying to escape my chest. I didn't cry, not here, not in front of them. I was still staring at the floor when a hand brushed mine. A man I didn't know slipped me a folded note and walked straight out the door. Written on it was a short sentence. 9 words in a sharp, unfamiliar scrawl. "He left you something else. It's in his study." The laughter around me blurred, then vanished. The chandelier above seemed to hum, like the house itself was listening. For the first time since the coffin closed, I wasn't mourning. I was wide awake. And if Richard had left me anything, it wasn't peace. It was a secret, one that could bury every last one of them. The note burned in my hand like evidence at a crime scene. I locked myself in Richard's study that night, the one room Charlotte hadn't stripped bare yet. She'd taken his watches, his cufflinks, even the fountain pen he used to sign checks. But she'd left the books, probably because she'd never seen him read one. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone's flashlight steady. "He left you something else?" But what? And where? I tore through drawers I'd opened 1,000 times. Nothing. My face was hot, jaw clenched so tight my teeth ached. 3 hours of searching, and I'd found nothing except dust and my own desperate breathing. Then I saw it. The corner of the Persian rug, the one Richard always straightened obsessively, was slightly lifted. Underneath, a seam in the floorboard. A metal lockbox. Small, plain, expensive-looking. The lock was digital. 4 digits. I tried our anniversary. Wrong. His birthday. Wrong. My pulse hammered in my ears. Then, 0924. September 24th. The day we first met. The box clicked open. Inside, a USB drive, a stack of papers, and a handwritten letter in Richard's slanted script. My throat closed up reading the date. 2 weeks before he died. "Camille, if you're reading this, David did his job, which means they pulled their little will swap exactly as predicted. I could have stopped them, protected you the conventional way. But where's the fun in that? The USB contains recordings, 18 months of them burying themselves. Board meetings, family dinners, private admissions, everything you need. The documents are offshore accounts in your name. Cayman Islands, Switzerland. 47 million they don't know exists. They think you married me for money. Time to show them what you really married into, a front row seat to their destruction. Go make it wild, darling. They've earned it." I had to read it twice before my brain caught up. $47 million. A will swap. Predicted. Richard had known. He'd planned this. I plugged the USB into his laptop with trembling hands. The first file opened. Audio, dated 16 months ago. Henry's voice, crystal clear. We need to update Dad's will before she convinces him to leave her everything. Charlotte's response, casual as ordering coffee. She's not family. She's a transaction that went on too long. My face flushed hot. I remembered that day. I'd made them dinner, homemade lasagna. Charlotte had smiled at me, told me the sauce was divine. I clicked the next file. Another dinner, 8 months ago. Richard's voice, weak but firm. I want to ensure Camille is protected. Henry, cutting him off. Dad, she's 42 and you're 78. Let's be realistic about what this relationship is. Charlotte, laughing. Actually laughing. Henry, don't be rude. I'm sure she was very comforting to him. I could see her face in my mind. That night, she'd hugged me in the hallway, whispered that I was so good for her father. My hands had stopped shaking. Something cold settled into my chest. I spent the next 6 hours listening to every recording. By dawn, I knew 3 things. They'd been poisoning Richard against me for years. They'd pushed through a will change while he was on morphine, barely conscious. And Henry had been embezzling from the family company, $6.2 million through shell corporations. Charlotte knew. The recordings proved it. I sat back in Richard's leather chair as sunrise bled through the windows. They'd wanted to erase me, make me nothing. But Richard hadn't just left me money. He'd left me a loaded gun, a front row seat, and permission to pull the trigger. And God help them. I was about to make it wild. I didn't sleep. I planned. The recordings were a gold mine, but I couldn't just dump them online. That was too quick, too clean. They'd lawyer up, spin it, play victim. No, I needed them to destroy each other first. Henry's embezzlement was the key. Charlotte knew about it, but the other siblings didn't. Perfect. Day 1, I made a single call to a journalist I'd met at a charity gala, hungry, ambitious, the type who'd sell her own mother for a front-page story. I sent her an anonymous tip. Harper Industries CFO possibly involved in financial misconduct. Check shell corporations in Delaware. Simple, vague, just enough to make her start digging. Then I waited. 48 hours later, the article dropped. Harper Industries under investigation for possible financial irregularities. No names, just smoke. Charlotte called me that same afternoon, her voice tight as wire. Did you talk to the press? About what? I kept my tone confused, hurt. Charlotte, I wasn't even mentioned in the will, remember? Why would anyone care what I have to say? Someone leaked financials to a reporter. Board members are asking questions. Maybe you should ask Henry. Silence. Cold, calculating silence. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing. Just, Richard always said Henry was careless with paperwork. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from the rush. I'd planted the seed. Now, let it grow. 3 days passed. I spent them in Richard's study, listening to more recordings, mapping out who knew what and when. My jaw ached from clenching. Sleep came in 2-hour bursts. Then Marvin called. Marvin, the youngest Harper sibling, the one they always left out of important meetings. I almost didn't answer. But his voice was different, urgent. Camille, I need to see you. It's about the company. We met at a coffee shop in the financial district. Neutral ground. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, a coffee stain on his Brioni suit sleeve. Charlotte's lying about something, he said, not even pretending with small talk. The board's crawling up our asses about these financials, and she and Henry keep having private meetings. They shut me out completely. I leaned forward, letting my eyes well up. Marvin, I found something. In Richard's files, financial documents, transfers, offshore accounts, millions. His expression shifted. Show me. I can't carry them around, but they're in your father's office. Top drawer, under the Harper Industries contracts. Tonight. He left without finishing his coffee. I sat there another 20 minutes, my heart hammering, watching people walk past the window. A woman in a cream Burberry trench laughing into her phone. A delivery guy. Normal people living normal lives. Meanwhile, I was 3 blocks from the Harper building, burning their dynasty down from the inside. By 10 p.m., Marvin had the documents, carefully selected pages showing Henry's shell corporations, just enough redaction to make him paranoid about what else was hidden. By midnight, Charlotte was calling me again, screaming this time. "What the hell did you tell Marvin?" "That his brother's a thief. Same thing you've known for 18 months. "You bitch!" "Careful, Charlotte. Your father recorded everything, including the part where you laughed about covering for Henry." The line went dead. I poured myself Richard's favorite bourbon, Pappy Van Winkle, $300 a bottle, and opened the laptop. The real recordings were still encrypted. The ones proving they'd faked the will. The ones with them laughing about erasing me. But I had one more call to make first. Victoria answered on the first ring. "Camille? I'm sending you something," I said quietly. "A recording, Henry and Charlotte, from last year. Listen to it before you talk to either of them." "What is this about?" "The Delaware accounts, and why your sister's been lying to you." I hit send and closed the laptop. Outside my window, the city glittered. Somewhere out there, the Harpers were tearing each other apart, exactly as planned. And this was only round 1. The subpoena arrived on a Tuesday morning, hand-delivered by a process server who looked like he pitied me. Harper et al. v. Camille Harper, fraud, undue influence, intentional interference with inheritance rights. They were suing me. All 4 of them, united front, ironclad legal team. I read it twice, standing in my doorway, still in Richard's old Yale t-shirt, the one that smelled like him. My throat went tight. For just a second, one stupid, weak second, I wanted to cry. Then I saw the amount they were demanding, $12 million in damages. $12 million I supposedly manipulated out of their father. Money I'd never even touched. My hands stopped shaking. The grief evaporated like steam. They wanted a war in court? Perfect. I'd been hoping they'd be stupid enough to try. I called the lawyer Richard had recommended in his letter, David Hansen's partner, a woman named Patricia Rhodes who wore Louboutins and had a reputation for eviscerating wealthy families in probate court. "They're claiming undue influence," I told her, my voice steadier than I felt, "that I isolated Richard, manipulated him, cut them out of his life for financial gain." Patricia's smile was audible through the phone. "And what evidence do you have to counter that narrative?" 18 months of audio recordings, offshore accounts in my name that Richard opened 3 years ago, and a letter in his handwriting explaining exactly why he didn't trust them. Silence. Then, "When can you come in?" We met that afternoon. I brought everything. The USB drive, the documents, Richard's letter. Patricia listened to 3 recordings before she started laughing. "They have no idea what's about to hit them, do they?" "Not yet." "Keep it that way. Let them think they're winning." The hearing was set for 6 weeks out. In the meantime, the Harper family went scorched earth. Charlotte gave an interview to the Times. "We're heartbroken that someone we welcomed into our family would exploit our father's grief and illness for financial gain." Victoria posted on Instagram a photo of Richard from 10 years ago, caption reading, "Missing the father we lost long before he died." 200,000 likes. Henry appeared on a financial podcast talking about protecting family legacies from predatory relationships. I watched it all from Richard's study, taking notes. Every interview, every post, every carefully crafted lie. My face burned hot every time they used words like gold digger and manipulative. But I didn't respond. Didn't defend myself. Patricia had been clear. Let them perform. Every public statement is discoverable. They're building your case for you. Then Marvin broke ranks. But it wasn't because he believed me. It was because of an email he was never supposed to see. I'd been watching the discovery documents like a hawk. Every email, every text thread their lawyers were forced to turn over. That's when I found it. An email chain between Charlotte and Henry from 6 months ago discussing how to manage Marvin's expectations about his board position. The email was buried in a thread about Q3 earnings. Easy to miss. But line 47 made my blood sing. Marvin's equity stake needs to be diluted before Dad passes. He'll make noise, but he doesn't have the votes to fight us. Once the estate settles, we'll phase him out entirely. They were planning to squeeze him out. Their own brother. I didn't send it to Marvin directly. Too obvious. Instead, I forwarded it anonymously to the company's internal auditor with a subject line: Compliance issue, board governance. Corporate bureaucracy did the rest. The auditor flagged it. It went to the board's ethics committee. Someone leaked it to Marvin. 3 days later, it happened at a board meeting, one I only heard about because their lawyer was sloppy about redacting internal emails. Marvin had stood up in front of the entire board and demanded a full forensic audit of Henry's accounts. If we're going to court claiming financial misconduct, he'd said, we better make damn sure our house is clean first. The email thread that followed was pure chaos. Charlotte threatening him, Henry calling him a traitor, Victoria staying silent, which told me everything I needed to know about whose side she was actually on after hearing that recording. Marvin thought he was protecting himself. He had no idea I'd handed him the match. The week before the hearing, Patricia and I met one final time. They're going to paint you as a seductress, she warned, a younger woman who preyed on a vulnerable widower. Expect it to get ugly. Let them. I opened my laptop and pulled up a photo from Richard's files. Us at a charity gala, his arm around me, both of us laughing. I was wearing a simple black dress, tasteful, age-appropriate. I have pictures from every major event, board dinners where they excluded me, holidays where they made snide comments. And I have Richard's voice, Patricia, his actual voice, explaining that he knew exactly what he was doing. She smiled. Then let's go bury them. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Oak paneling, brass fixtures, a judge who looked bored before we even started. The Harpers sat on one side, Charlotte in Chanel, Henry in Tom Ford, Victoria pale and quiet, Marvin staring straight ahead like he wished he were anywhere else. I sat alone on the other side, by choice. Their lawyer went first, painted me as exactly what Patricia predicted, the scheming seductress, the opportunist, the woman who'd isolated Mr. Harper from his loving family during his final years. I kept my face neutral, hands folded, wedding ring still on my finger, the one Charlotte had told me I didn't deserve to wear. Then it was Patricia's turn. She played the first recording. Henry's voice filled the courtroom. We need to update Dad's will before she convinces him to leave her everything. Charlotte. She's not family. She's a transaction that went on too long. You could hear a pin drop. Patricia let it sit, then played another and another. 18 months of them plotting, scheming, dismissing their own father's wishes. I watched Charlotte's face drain of color, watched Henry's jaw clench, watched Victoria close her eyes. Then Patricia played Richard's voice, the recording he'd made 2 weeks before he died, sitting in his study, knowing exactly what was coming. My children believe I'm senile, incompetent, too old to make my own decisions, but I've never been more clear-headed. Camille didn't manipulate me. She saved me, from a family that saw me as nothing but a bank account with a heartbeat. His voice cracked. What I leave to Camille cannot be stolen. Not by lawyers, not by spite, not by the children I raised to value money over loyalty. And if they try, well, I've made sure she has everything she needs to fight back. The recording ended. Charlotte's face was red, blotchy, tears, but not grief, rage, pure, impotent rage. She turned to Henry, voice shaking. You told me those recordings didn't exist. Henry started. You promised me Dad didn't have anything on us. The judge banged his gavel. Order. Their lawyer stood, straightening his tie. Your Honor, we'd like to request a recess to discuss settlement, the judge finished. Yes, I imagine you would. I didn't smile. Not yet. But as I walked out of that courtroom, head high, I heard it starting behind me. Charlotte's voice, sharp as broken glass. This is your fault, Henry. You're sloppy, arrogant. Henry. My fault? You're the one who said we needed to move fast, that she was... Victoria. Both of you shut up. Just shut up. Marvin said nothing. But when I glanced back, he was staring at Charlotte and Henry like he'd never seen them before. The dynasty wasn't just fractured anymore. It was a powder keg, and I'd just lit the fuse. The settlement came through 6 days later. $8.5 million paid to me for emotional distress and defamation. Not the full inheritance. Richard's actual will was ironclad, and they couldn't touch the offshore accounts. But I wanted them to feel it, wanted them to write that check and know exactly what it cost. I thought that would be the end. I was wrong. The real show started 3 weeks later when Henry filed a lawsuit against Charlotte for breach of fiduciary duty and conspiracy to commit fraud. I was having coffee when I saw the headline, Harper CFO sues sister, claims she masterminded embezzlement scheme. I laughed so hard I choked. Henry's lawsuit blamed Charlotte. Charlotte's countersuit blamed Henry. Victoria sued them both. Marvin filed to dissolve the family trust entirely. Within 6 months, Harper Industries was circling the drain. I watched from my Brooklyn brownstone, tracking every angry press statement, every new legal bill. Charlotte burned through millions in lawyer fees. Henry mortgaged his beach house. Victoria fired 3 attorneys before she finally sold her shares at a massive loss and fled to Portugal. The company collapsed 18 months after the trial. Chapter 11. Bankruptcy. Everything Richard built, gone. Charlotte lost the house, the cars, the board seat. Last I heard, she's a consultant in Chicago, making a fraction of her old salary. She still does interviews, playing the victim. No one's listening. Henry took a plea deal. 4 years for wire fraud. Minimum security in Pennsylvania. His wife divorced him, took the kids, moved to her mother's place in Arizona. Victoria won't speak to either of them. Sends me a Christmas card every year from Portugal. Never signs it. Just, I should have listened to you. Marvin got out early, sold everything, started a foundation. I saw him at a charity event 2 years later. You knew, he said quietly. That email, that was you. I just smiled. They're destroying each other, he continued, and you're untouched, I finished. He stared at me for a long moment, then walked away. I didn't plan for them to eat each other alive like this. I just gave them the information, showed them who they really were, who they'd always been. They destroyed themselves. I moved out of the Harper mansion 4 months after the trial, bought my brownstone with cash, not Richard's money, my money from the settlement. Smaller, quieter, mine. Richard's study is the only room I recreated exactly. His books, his desk, his bourbon. Sometimes I sit there with the USB drive in my hand, listening to old recordings. Not for revenge anymore, just to hear his voice. The way he laughed when he thought he was alone. The moment he figured out what his children were planning. The moment he decided to burn it all down and hand me the matches. I still have $47 million in those offshore accounts. Haven't touched a dollar. Don't need to. Turns out I didn't marry Richard for money. I married him for the education. And God, what an education it was. People ask if I regret it, if destroying an entire family dynasty keeps me up at night. Not one bit. I sleep like a baby. Because here's what they never understood. Richard didn't leave me an inheritance. He left me justice. And I delivered. So tell me, watching them tear each other apart over scraps while I walked away untouched? Was that mercy or cruelty? Drop your answer in the comments because something tells me you know exactly which one it was. And if you enjoyed this story, like it and subscribe and watch the next one as well. It's just popped up on your screen. Thanks for watching.